finally came, Agnes answered with bated breath. The voice on the other end sounded official and calm, but as soon as she heard the words, "Congratulations, you've been selected," she felt a jolt of joy. Andrew hugged her tightly, lifting her off her feet as they both celebrated. From the moment they had entered the house, Agnes and Gloria had been in an unspoken competition for dominance. They were both strong, confident, and unwilling to let the other shine bright. Their late-night talks had turned into stolen moments of hand-holding, lingering eye contact, and whispered jokes that no one else could hear. "Agnes, you have been evicted." For a moment, she sat frozen, as if time had stopped. Andrew had always seen something special in Agnes, even if she didn't fully see it in herself. A quiet but passionate young woman. Agnes had big dreams but never seemed to find the right path to make them a reality. She was charming, bold, and naturally captivating, qualities that drew people to her. Andrew, her boyfriend of 3 years, had watched her struggle with self-doubt and, at times, get frustrated with life's limitations. He loved her deeply, and he couldn't stand to see her potential go unfulfilled. So, when he heard that the auditions for Big Brother Lagos were open, Andrew saw a golden opportunity. He knew this could be her breakthrough moment, a chance to showcase her charisma, her intellect, and her wit to the entire nation. He was convinced that Agnes had everything it took to shine on such a platform, and he was willing to do whatever it took to see her on that stage. Without even mentioning it to her, Andrew made the decision. Choosing photos that showed off her radiant smile and submitting a video from one of their holidays where Agnes had been lively, animated, and completely herself. In the video, she was laughing and narrating a silly story, her eyes sparkling with the kind of confidence she rarely acknowledged in herself. A few days later, Agnes noticed him acting strange, constantly checking his phone and being a little too secretive. She brushed it off at first, but curiosity got the best of her. Finally, when she saw him staring intensely at his screen with a grin, she pried the truth out of him. "Wait, you did what?" she exclaimed, staring at him in disbelief. Andrew simply beamed, trying to reassure her. "I submitted your application for Big Brother Lagos," he said, his voice laced with excitement. "Babe, this could be it. You have what it takes. I just know it." Initially, Agnes was overwhelmed. The thought of being in front of cameras 24/7, with millions of people watching, terrified her. She worried she wasn't interesting enough, that people wouldn't connect with her, or worse, that they'd ridicule her. Yet, as Andrew explained his reasons, she felt a spark of excitement. His belief in her was contagious, and soon enough, she began to imagine herself in the Big Brother house, imagining the thrill of meeting new people, taking on challenges, and maybe even winning. Days passed, and just as Agnes was settling back into her routine, she received a call. It was from the Big Brother Lagos casting team. They were inviting her for an audition. Her excitement was nearly drowned by a sudden surge of nerves. What would she say? How would she make herself stand out? But with Andrew by her side, giving her pep talks and helping her prepare, she felt ready. He insisted on taking her shopping for a perfect audition outfit, a sleek, simple dress that made her feel confident and radiant. He also helped her practice her answers, asking questions and pushing her to share her thoughts and passions. The day of the audition was charged with excitement, nerves, and a tinge of uncertainty for Agnes. She had spent the previous night rehearsing answers with Andrew, practicing introductions, and even trying to control her laughter one of her most contagious and distinct features. She could still hardly believe this was happening. Big Brother Lagos, a chance to be seen, to tell her story, and maybe even walk away with the grand prize. But she knew it wouldn't be easy. She'd have to convince the panel that she was someone the nation would want to watch. Dressed in the outfit Andrew had picked out, a sleek, vibrant blue dress that brought out her eyes and added a touch of elegance, Agnes entered the audition venue, joining a crowd of equally hopeful contestants. The competition was palpable in the room, each person exuding confidence, excitement, and sometimes intimidation. As she looked around, she caught glimpses of elaborate hairstyles, dazzling outfits, and some of the boldest personalities she'd ever encountered. Her heart raced, but she steadied herself with a deep breath, reminding herself to simply be real. When her name was called, Agnes stepped into the audition room with as much confidence as she could muster. The panel of judges greeted her with neutral but curious expressions, clearly prepared to analyze every word and gesture. She introduced herself, and immediately, they asked why she wanted to be on Big Brother Lagos. Agnes hesitated for a split second, but then her words started flowing. She talked about her journey, her dreams, and her love for storytelling. She admitted that she'd never seen herself in this kind of spotlight before, but that she wanted to try. "I think people need to see someone real, someone who has flaws and isn't afraid to show them," she said. "I'm here because I want to challenge myself, push my limits, and maybe inspire people along the way." One of the judges leaned forward, intrigued. "What would make you different from the other contestants?" he asked. Agnes smiled, sensing the opportunity to reveal her personality. "I'm unpredictable," she replied with a chuckle. "I can go from serious to silly in seconds. I'm that friend who makes everyone laugh in tough situations. Life is short, so I believe in living boldly, being vulnerable, and laughing through the ups and downs." Her laughter was infectious, and the judges' smiles softened as they caught a glimpse of her charm. But the questions kept coming, each one more probing than the last. They asked her about her values, her views on relationships, and her ability to handle conflict. Agnes answered honestly, sometimes drawing on personal experiences, sometimes offering opinions that surprised even herself. One judge, clearly amused, asked if she could share a funny story. Agnes grinned, launching into an animated tale about a disastrous family wedding she had attended. Her storytelling was captivating. She used expressive hand gestures, mimicked the voices of her family members, and painted a vivid picture of the chaos. By the end of her story, the room was filled with laughter. "All right, Agnes," the lead judge said, trying to hide his smile. "We've got a lot of candidates today, but I have to ask one last thing. What would you do if you encountered someone in the house you just couldn't get along with?" Without missing a beat, Agnes replied, "Oh, I'd probably end up being best friends with them by accident. I'm competitive, but I don't hold grudges. We'd start as rivals, but I'd make them laugh so much, they'd forget why they didn't like me." The judges exchanged glances, clearly intrigued by her unpredictable but endearing personality. Agnes could feel the energy in the room shift. She had their attention, and they liked her. After a few more questions, they thanked her, and she stepped out of the audition room, feeling a surge of relief and pride. Outside, Andrew was waiting, anxiously pacing until he saw her walk out. The moment she caught his eye, he hurried over, his own nervousness almost matching hers. "How did it go?" he asked, gripping her shoulders with excitement. Agnes grinned, her confidence radiating. "I think I nailed it," she said, laughing. She shared some of the questions they had asked and how she had responded, leaving Andrew laughing at her witty answers. They celebrated with ice cream, laughing and talking about her performance, dissecting every detail and sharing the nervousness of waiting for a callback. Days later, when the call finally came, Agnes answered with bated breath. The voice on the other end sounded official and calm, but as soon as she heard the words, "Congratulations, you've been selected," she felt a jolt of joy. Andrew hugged her tightly, lifting her off her feet as they both celebrated. She had done it. She was officially a Big Brother Lagos contestant. As they celebrated, Agnes felt a mix of excitement, pride, and a bit of fear. This was her chance, her moment to shine, and she was determined not to let it slip through her fingers. Little did she know, this experience would challenge her in ways she had never imagined, pushing her to confront not only her fears but also parts of herself she hadn't yet discovered. The day had finally arrived. Agnes could hardly believe it as she took a deep breath, steadied herself, and prepared to enter the house. She had been watching Big Brother for years, but now she was on the other side, no longer a spectator but a participant in the game. As the doors swung open and she stepped inside, she was greeted by a vibrant, luxurious living room filled with colorful decor and bold patterns that screamed drama. Her heart pounded as she took it all in. The lights, the cameras, the high-definition screens. They reminded her that, from this moment on, her every move would be observed, her every word scrutinized by millions of viewers. She'd prepared herself for this, but the reality of it was dizzying. She looked around, smiling as she noticed a few other housemates milling around, introducing themselves and laughing as they settled in. Agnes walked into the gathering of housemates, her confidence blossoming as she introduced herself with a warm smile. I'm Agnes. I can't wait to get to know all of you," she said, her voice steady but brimming with excitement. The group welcomed her, but it didn't take long for her to sense the subtle undercurrents of competition and curiosity. Everyone was assessing everyone else, and Agnes quickly realized that this wouldn't be like any other social experience. She would have to navigate friendships and rivalries, all while staying true to herself. As the group continued to mingle, she noticed one of the women, Gloria, standing with a confident stance, her gaze sharp and watchful. Gloria was tall, stunning, and immediately drew attention with a magnetic presence. She was chatting casually, but there was a clear air of authority about her, a self-assuredness that intrigued and, admittedly, intimidated Agnes. The two made brief eye contact, each offering the other a polite smile that was laced with something unspoken. Their introductions were polite enough, but Agnes couldn't shake the feeling that Gloria was sizing her up, almost as though she was deciding whether Agnes would be friend or foe. She sensed that Gloria was used to being the dominant personality in any room, a quality Agnes admired yet felt wary of. Despite her friendly demeanor, Agnes knew from that moment that they would have a complicated relationship. As the day progressed, the housemates continued to settle in, finding rooms and claiming beds. Agnes joined a few of the girls, including Gloria, in the largest bedroom, chatting and joking as they unpacked their things. She tried to engage with everyone, hoping to make a good impression, but she noticed that her friendliness seemed to bother Gloria. Every time Agnes spoke up or made a joke, Gloria would subtly roll her eyes or give a smirk, making Agnes feel like she was stepping into unknown territory. Not one to shy away from challenges, Agnes decided to handle Gloria's attitude with a smile. After all, they were stuck in this house together, and she knew that any tension could easily spiral into full-blown drama under the cameras. But the more Agnes tried to ignore it, the more Gloria's passive-aggressive comments began to wear on her. During one conversation, when Agnes shared a funny story from her audition, Gloria responded with a dismissive, "Oh, so you're the comedian of the house." Her tone was light, but the sarcasm was clear. Agnes laughed it off, but the subtle digs continued, and soon it was clear to everyone that Gloria and Agnes weren't exactly on the path to becoming best friends. Other housemates noticed the tension, some trying to ease it by changing the subject, others whispering to each other, already amused by the budding rivalry. The cat and rat label quickly caught on, as Agnes and Gloria's personalities clashed again and again in small but noticeable ways. Despite her uneasy start with Gloria, Agnes quickly found herself bonding with some of the male housemates. Her natural charm and wit made her popular among the guys, and she enjoyed the light-hearted teasing and camaraderie they offered. She met Richard, a quiet but charming participant with a sharp wit and a kind smile. They clicked instantly, their conversations flowing effortlessly as they shared stories, exchanged jokes, and enjoyed each other's company. As she drifted off to sleep, Agnes resolved to play her game smart. She would embrace the competition, make genuine connections, and prove to herself and the audience that she belonged in this house. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them, especially if it meant standing her ground against Gloria. The first few days in the Big Brother Lagos house were all about forming alliances, settling into routines, and getting a feel for the competition. For Agnes, however, those days were also filled with subtle battles of dominance between herself and Gloria. It had started with harmless remarks and passive-aggressive comments, but it was quickly evolving into something bigger, something the entire house was beginning to notice. The tension escalated during their first major task. The house was divided into two teams, and as luck would have it, Agnes and Gloria were placed on the same team. The challenge required them to create an entertaining drama performance, and everyone quickly started throwing in ideas. Agnes, being a natural storyteller, excitedly pitched a funny plot idea about a dramatic love triangle, which the majority of the teams seemed to like, except Gloria. "I don't think that's a strong enough concept," Gloria interjected with a dismissive wave of her hand. "It's too predictable." Agnes frowned but kept her cool. "Predictable? No way. It's hilarious. We just need to act it out properly." Gloria smiled tightly. "Or we could go with something more unique instead of another love story." There it was again, that air of superiority that Agnes was beginning to despise. Before she could respond, another housemate, Cunnel, stepped in to ease the tension. "How about we mix both ideas and see what works best?" he suggested. The group agreed, but the damage had been done. The exchange had confirmed what Agnes had already suspected. Gloria saw her as competition, and the feeling was mutual. As the days went by, their rivalry played out in small but noticeable ways. If Agnes laughed loudly at a joke, Gloria would roll her eyes. If Gloria was telling a story, Agnes would subtly redirect the conversation. It was as if they were constantly trying to outshine each other, and neither was willing to back down. The rest of the house began to take sides, some finding Gloria's confidence appealing, while others enjoyed Agnes's quick wit and relatable energy. Even Big Brother seemed to notice, as the daily highlight clips often featured their growing tension, making them one of the most talked about dynamics in the house. By the end of the week, it was clear, Agnes and Gloria weren't just housemates. They were rivals, and with each passing day, their clash was only growing stronger. As the days rolled by, Agnes began to navigate the social dynamics of the Big Brother Lagos house with more intention. She had already made a name for herself, both as a lively and entertaining contestant and as someone who wasn't afraid to challenge Gloria's dominance. But she quickly realized that to survive in the house, She needed more than just confidence and a sharp tongue. She needed alliances. Agnes observed the house carefully, studying each personality like a chessboard. Some contestants were loud and dramatic, while others preferred to stay in the background, calculating their moves. She decided early on that she needed a balance, people who would support her but wouldn't overshadow her. She first gravitated toward Tolu, a soft-spoken but intelligent woman who seemed to prefer deep conversations over constant bickering. Unlike Gloria, Tolu didn't thrive on competition. She was simply there to enjoy the experience. Agnes appreciated her calm presence and found comfort in their conversations about life, relationships, and their dreams outside the house. Then there was Bella, an outspoken fashionista who was always camera-ready. Bella and Agnes bonded over their love for makeup and fashion, often sharing styling tips in front of the mirror. Bella was more strategic than Tolu, always keeping tabs on the house drama and using her charm to stay in everyone's good books. Agnes knew Bella was playing the game, but she admired her tactics. These two became Agnes's closest female allies, but she didn't limit herself. The male housemates, in particular, seemed to gravitate toward her. While Agnes had her issues with Gloria, she found it much easier to get along with the men in the house. She was naturally playful, quick-witted, and unafraid to engage in the friendly banter that dominated the house's atmosphere. Her personality made her a favorite among the guys, but it was her ability to hold intelligent conversations that truly won them over. One of her closest male allies was Kuanlei, a gym-loving, easygoing contestant with a protective nature. He was one of the few people who never took sides between her and Gloria, choosing instead to remain neutral. Whenever tensions flared, he was the one reminding everyone to relax and not take things too personally. Then there was Eviction, a comedian by nature, who loved making Agnes laugh. The two would often be seen whispering inside jokes to each other, cracking up during serious moments in the house. But the real game changer was Richard. Agnes hadn't expected to form a deeper bond with anyone in the house, but from the moment she met Richard, there was something different. He was charismatic but not overbearing, observant but never judgmental. He listened, really listened, when she spoke, and that was something she hadn't realized she craved. At first, their friendship was light-hearted. They exchanged jokes, teamed up during games, and had each other's backs when arguments broke out. But as the days went by, their chemistry became undeniable. Late at night, when most housemates had gone to bed, they would sit together in the garden, talking about life outside the house, their dreams, and the kind of people they wanted to be. Agnes found herself drawn to him in ways she hadn't expected. But was this just a game strategy, or was something real developing between them? She wasn't sure. But one thing was clear. Richard was becoming her safe space in the chaotic world of Big Brother Lagos. Agnes had expected challenges in the Big Brother Lagos house, but she never imagined that her biggest obstacle would come in the form of Gloria. Their tension, which had started as subtle jabs and dismissive remarks, was now evolving into full-fledged hostility. What made it worse was that everyone in the house could see it, and many secretly enjoyed watching the battle unfold. From the moment they had entered the house, Agnes and Gloria had been in an unspoken competition for dominance. They were both strong, confident, and unwilling to let the other shine brighter. But their rivalry wasn't just about control. It was about respect, and neither was willing to back down. The first big fight between Agnes and Gloria happened over something seemingly trivial, a kitchen dispute. It was the morning after a long and exhausting task, and the housemates were slowly dragging themselves to the kitchen for breakfast. Agnes had volunteered to make eggs, but just as she was about to start, Gloria walked in and grabbed the frying pan. "I think I'll cook today," Gloria announced, not even looking at Agnes. Agnes raised an eyebrow. I already said I'd do it. Gloria shrugged. Well, you take too long. The words stung more than they should have. The dismissiveness, the assumption that Gloria could override her decision without a second thought, it lit a fire in Agnes's chest. She refused to let this slide. Excuse me, Agnes said, crossing her arms. Who put you in charge of the kitchen schedule? Gloria finally turned to her, wearing the same condescending smirk that drove Agnes insane. Relax, darling. It's just eggs. By now, a few housemates had gathered, sensing that things were about to escalate. Colonel, ever the peacemaker, tried to step in. Guys, it's really not a big deal. But Agnes wasn't backing down. It's not about eggs, Gloria. It's about respect. Maybe you should learn how to share responsibility instead of acting like this house belongs to you. The tension in the kitchen thickened. Gloria's smirk faded, replaced by a look of quiet fury. She wasn't used to being challenged so openly. Oh, please, Gloria scoffed. You're just mad because you know I'm a bigger personality than you. A stunned silence fell over the house. Agnes felt her anger boiling over, but instead of yelling, she simply laughed. You think this is a personality contest? Agnes said, shaking her head. Nah, Gloria, I just think you're insecure and need to put others down to feel important. The moment the words left her mouth, the room erupted with reactions. Some gasped, others chuckled, and a few housemates quickly walked away to avoid being dragged into the fight. Gloria's eyes flashed with anger, but instead of responding, she turned around and stormed out. From that moment, it became clear Agnes and Gloria were enemies. Some housemates sided with Gloria, seeing her as assertive and strong. Others found her attitude overbearing and respected Agnes for standing up to her. Bella and Talou were firmly on Agnes's side, while a few of the other girls seemed more aligned with Gloria. Agnes didn't mind the division. It only fueled her determination. If Gloria wanted a battle, she'd get one. But Agnes wouldn't fight dirty. She'd win by being her true self, and by proving to the audience that she wasn't just another contestant. She was a force to be reckoned with. What she didn't realize, however, was that this rivalry was becoming one of the most talked about storylines outside the house. The cameras were catching every tense moment, and the fans? They were eating it up. Agnes knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning. After weeks of tension, drama, and competition in the Big Brother Lagos house, Agnes found herself drifting into something unexpected: love. The long days of intense challenges and strategic alliances had given her many moments of frustration. But amidst all the chaos, one thing remained constant: Richard. From the very first week, Agnes had noticed him, not just because of his charming smile or athletic build, but because of his calmness. Unlike many of the other men in the house who were loud, boastful, or playing aggressive strategies, Richard was different. He was laid back, observant, and had a way of making Agnes feel seen and understood. It started with small moments: light-hearted teasing during games, playful arguments over music choices, and Richard's ability to make Agnes laugh when she was stressed. But it wasn't until one night, after a particularly heated argument with Gloria, that Agnes truly began to feel something deeper. Frustrated, she had gone to sit outside in the garden, trying to calm herself. Richard, noticing her mood, had quietly joined her, offering her a drink and a reassuring smile. "Rough night?" he asked. Agnes sighed, leaning her head back on the chair. "You have no idea." Richard chuckled. "Actually, I do. The whole house does. You and Gloria, it's like watching a live-action movie. Agnes groaned, shaking her head. I don't even know why she gets to me so much. I hate feeling like I have to prove myself to her all the time. Richard leaned in slightly, his dark eyes filled with curiosity. Maybe you don't. Agnes turned to him, raising an eyebrow. What do you mean? Richard shrugged. You're already one of the strongest personalities here. People notice you. You don't have to fight for that. And honestly, he smirked. I think you drive Gloria crazy because she sees you as a threat. Agnes let out a soft laugh. You think so? Richard nodded. I know so. The conversation lasted for hours, shifting from house dynamics to their personal lives. They talked about their families, their biggest regrets, their dreams for the future. And somewhere in between those deep conversations, Agnes felt the shift. From that night on, something was different between them. Their connection became more obvious, their touches lingered a little longer, and the way Richard looked at her made Agnes' heart race. The other housemates began to notice. Bella and Talou teased her endlessly, whispering about how Richard and Agnes were always together. Even Connell, one of Richard's closest friends, playfully called them the lovebirds. But not everyone was happy about this budding romance. Gloria, in particular, seemed annoyed. Whether it was because she disliked Agnes or had her own interest in Richard, Agnes wasn't sure. What she did know, however, was that she hadn't felt this kind of chemistry with anyone in a long time. And in a house where trust was rare, Richard was quickly becoming her safe space. Little did she know, their romance would soon become one of the most talked about relationships outside the house, and a game-changing factor in her journey. As the weeks unfolded in the Big Brother Lagos house, Agnes began to reveal more layers of her personality. She wasn't just the outspoken, confident woman that people initially saw. She had depth, emotions, and contradictions that made her one of the most unpredictable contestants. The audience was glued to their screens, trying to figure her out. Agnes had a bold and fearless nature that set her apart. She wasn't afraid to speak her mind, stand her ground, or challenge anyone, even the men. She refused to be intimidated by strong personalities, and her fights with Gloria had only solidified her reputation as a fighter. During group discussions and tasks, she took charge, delegating responsibilities and ensuring things got done. Some housemates appreciated her leadership, but others saw her as bossy and domineering. Bella and Talou often backed her up, while others, like Gloria, used it as an excuse to label her as too much. But Agnes didn't care. She was here to compete, not to play small. Despite her fiery exterior, Agnes had a soft and romantic side, which was most evident in her growing relationship with Richard. Around him, she was different, gentler, more vulnerable, and even a little shy. Their late-night talks had turned into stolen moments of hand-holding, lingering eye contact, and whispered jokes that no one else could hear. Whenever he was near, her tough walls melted just a little. Some housemates teased them, calling them the couple of the season. But Agnes tried not to get too caught up in it. Was this real? Or was it just the pressure of being locked up together? She wasn't sure, but she knew one thing. Richard made her feel safe in a house filled with uncertainty. One thing no one could deny about Agnes was that she was incredibly fun to watch. Whether it was her quick wit, her exaggerated storytelling, or her ability to roast people in the most hilarious way, she kept the house entertained. During games, she was competitive but playful. During parties, she was the life of the dance floor, pulling housemates into spontaneous dance-offs. Even in tense moments, She had a way of lightening the mood, making people laugh when they least expected it. But beneath all the laughter, there was another side of Agnes that only a few people got to see. Being in the house was tougher than Agnes had imagined. The constant pressure, the fights, the fear of eviction, it all weighed on her. Late at night, when the cameras weren't zooming in on her every move, she had moments where she questioned herself. Was she playing the game right? Was she making the right allies? Did the audience like her? Or was she making a fool of herself? It was in those quiet moments that she realized she was more fragile than she let on. But in a house where weakness could be exploited, she knew she had to keep those doubts hidden. For now, she would continue being the firecracker, the lover, the entertainer. But deep down, she wondered, was she truly being herself? Or was she just playing the role the house expected of her? The Big Brother Lagos house had settled into its rhythm. Alliances were forming, romances were blooming, and rivalries were intensifying. But nothing sent shockwaves through the house quite like nomination day. Every week, housemates were required to secretly nominate 2 contestants for possible eviction. And this week, Agnes was feeling the pressure. She had built a strong presence in the house. She was confident, outspoken, and undeniably entertaining. But those same qualities made her a threat, and she knew it. Agnes had already butted heads with Gloria multiple times, and she suspected Gloria would nominate her without hesitation. But what worried her more was the silent game being played behind the scenes. Some housemates, especially those who stayed in the background, were starting to strategize, whispering in corners and forming quiet alliances. While Agnes thrived in open confrontation, she struggled with the sneaky, underhanded side of the game. Tolu, always observant, had warned her earlier that day. Agnes, people are talking. You might want to tone down the confidence a little. Agnes scoffed. Tone down? For what? I'm just being me. I know, Tolu sighed. But being you might be making you a target. Agnes didn't want to believe it, but deep down, she knew Tolu was right. She was too visible, too unpredictable, and that made people uneasy. When Big Brother called housemates into the diary room for nominations, the air in the house became thick with tension. One by one, contestants disappeared behind the closed door, emerging minutes later with carefully controlled expressions. When it was Agnes's turn, she walked in, heart pounding. She sat in the chair, staring at the screen in front of her. Agnes, Big Brother's voice boomed. Please nominate 2 housemates for possible eviction. She didn't hesitate. Gloria, she said firmly. And Enyi. She knew Gloria was her biggest enemy, and Enyi, while fun, was playing too safe, never taking real risks in the game. After her nomination, she returned to the living area, trying to read everyone's faces. Who had nominated her? Who was on her side? It was impossible to tell. Later that evening, Big Brother gathered the housemates to announce the names of those up for eviction. The moment Agnes heard her name, her stomach dropped. She had been nominated. She tried to keep her face neutral, but her mind was racing. Who had betrayed her? Was it someone close to her? The other names followed, but Agnes barely registered them. She was on the chopping block, and this week's eviction would determine her fate. As the housemates whispered amongst themselves, Richard reached for her hand under the table, giving it a small squeeze. She turned to him, forcing a smile. I'm not going down without a fight, she whispered. And she meant it. She had played the game boldly, never hiding in the background, never staying silent just to keep people comfortable. But now, she was paying the price. Some housemates saw her as a threat. Others simply wanted her gone. As she sat in the living area, pretending to be unfazed, Her mind was racing with a single question. Who had betrayed her? Her eyes instinctively darted toward Gloria, who sat with her arms crossed and an infuriating smirk on her lips. Of course, Gloria had nominated her. That wasn't a surprise. But what about the others? She thought about the quiet ones, the ones who never openly argued with her but might have whispered her name in the diary room. Could it have been Evgeny, Kunle, maybe even Bella? Her stomach churned at the thought of being betrayed by someone close to her. As the eviction night drew closer, Agnes tried to maintain her confidence. If she acted too desperate, she knew it would work against her. But on the inside, she was panicking. Would the audience save her? Or had she made too many enemies, both inside and outside the house? Richard noticed her unease and pulled her aside one evening in the garden. "You okay?" he asked, watching her closely. Agnes sighed, hugging her knees to her chest. "I don't know. I feel like I messed up somewhere." Richard shook his head. "No, you were yourself, Agnes. And if that's not enough for them, then that's on them, not you." His words comforted her, but not enough to erase the dread building inside her. Finally, Sunday night arrived. The live audience, the flashing lights, the booming voice of the host, everything felt surreal. One by one, the nominated housemates were called. Agnes clutched Richard's hand tightly as the host drew out the suspense, announcing who was safe. Then, the dreaded words came. "Agnes, you have been evicted." For a moment, she sat frozen, as if time had stopped. This couldn't be happening. Not yet. A wave of emotions hit her all at once. Shock, disappointment, anger, sadness. The other housemates clapped politely, some offering quick hugs. Bella and Talou looked genuinely sad, while Gloria looked smug. Agnes clenched her jaw. If nothing else, she wouldn't give Gloria the satisfaction of seeing her break down. Richard pulled her into a tight embrace. "You're gonna be fine," he whispered. "You're bigger than this house." His words meant everything, but as she pulled away and walked toward the exit doors, she knew her worst nightmare had come true. She had lost the game. Walking out of the Big Brother Lagos house was one of the hardest things she had ever done. The crowd outside was roaring, cameras flashing as she stepped onto the eviction stage. The host greeted her with a microphone, but Agnes barely heard the words. She was too busy trying to control the lump in her throat. She wouldn't cry. Not here, not in front of millions. During her eviction interview, they played clips of her best and worst moments in the house. The audience laughed at her funny moments, gasped at her fights with Gloria, and cheered at her romance with Richard. Watching herself on screen, Agnes realized just how much of an impact she had made. She wasn't just another contestant. She was one of the most talked about housemates of the season. But it still wasn't enough to save her. As the interview wrapped up, the host smiled. "Any final words, Agnes?" Agnes took a deep breath, forcing a smile. "I have no regrets. I was real. I was myself. And I wouldn't change a thing." The crowd erupted in applause. But as she walked off the stage, the reality of it all finally hit her. Agnes had imagined many scenarios for her time in the Big Brother Lagos house, winning the grand prize, making it to the final week, even being part of the top 3. But never had she imagined leaving so soon, after just 3 weeks. As she packed her belongings, the weight of disappointment settled deep in her chest. She had fought hard, played boldly, and refused to be overshadowed. And yet, here she was, folding clothes into a suitcase, preparing for her final exit. The energy in the house was tense yet oddly quiet. Most of the housemates were careful with their words, avoiding anything that would make the situation worse. Some gave her reassuring hugs, while others, like Gloria, watched from a distance, offering nothing more than a small, victorious smirk. Agnes ignored her, She refused to give Gloria the satisfaction of seeing her upset. As she made her way toward the front door, her closest friends, Tolu, Bella, and Richard, walked with her. Tolu had tears in her eyes. "I hate that you're leaving so soon," she whispered. "The house won't be the same without you." Bella forced a smile. "We'll make sure to keep your name alive. And if Gloria gets out of line, don't worry, I'll handle her." Agnes chuckled softly at that. But deep down, the pain was still there. She had been ready for anything in this game, except failure. Then came Richard. He pulled her into a long, tight embrace, his arms lingering around her waist as if holding on to their last moment together. "You're going to kill it outside this house," he murmured into her ear. "This isn't the end for you, Agnes. Not even close." Agnes swallowed hard, nodding. But when she pulled away, the emotions in his eyes were unmistakable. She didn't know what they were to each other yet, but she knew that whatever they had was real. And now, just like that, it was over. She turned to the door, took a deep breath, and stepped out of the house for the last time. The moment she walked onto the eviction stage, the bright lights and roaring crowd overwhelmed her. She waved, plastering on a smile, but the disappointment clawed at her chest. During the post-eviction interview, the host replayed clips of her journey, her fights with Gloria, her funniest moments, and of course, her romance with Richard. The audience reacted with cheers, laughter, and a few sympathetic sighs when the host asked if she regretted anything. Agnes took a deep breath. "No regrets. I was myself every single day." It sounded strong, but inside, she wasn't sure if she believed it. As the night ended and she was taken away from the stage, the weight of her eviction finally crushed her. She was out, and nothing could change that. Agnes had barely settled into the reality of being evicted when she was whisked away from the Big Brother Lagos stage. The cameras had stopped rolling, the bright lights had faded, and the adrenaline that had kept her going all night was finally wearing off. Now, she was just Agnes again, not a contestant, not a housemate, not part of the game. She sat in the back of the car that was driving her to the hotel where all evicted housemates were required to stay for a few days before returning to their normal lives. She stared out of the window, watching the city lights blur past. Everything felt unreal. Just days ago, she had been inside the house, waking up to cameras in her face, competing in tasks, laughing with her friends, and arguing with Gloria. Now, she was back in the real world, a world that had been watching her every move for the past 3 weeks. She didn't know what awaited her on the outside. When Agnes woke up the next morning in her hotel room, she sighed, running a hand through her hair. The habit would take a while to break. A few hours later, she reached out for her phone back. She hesitated before unlocking it. She knew she had missed a lot, messages, comments, and most importantly, the public's reaction to her eviction. Her heart pounded as she opened her social media apps. The first thing she saw was her name trending on Twitter. #JusticeForAgnes was one of the top trends. She frowned in confusion and clicked on it, reading through the tweets. Apparently, many fans believed she had been unfairly evicted. Some accused the show of manipulating the votes. Others said she was one of the most entertaining housemates and that it was too soon for her to leave. For a moment, she felt a surge of relief. At least she wasn't being completely dragged. But as she scrolled further, she saw the negative comments too. Agnes was too loud, too aggressive. She deserved to go, always looking for a fight. She was acting like she owned the house. And worst of all, Gloria won. LOL. Agnes' jaw tightened. Was that how people saw it? That she and Gloria had been in a war and she had lost? It stung more than she wanted to admit. Later that evening, Agnes met up with her closest family and friends. Her best friend, Chica, pulled her into a tight hug the moment she walked into the restaurant. "Girl, I swear I was ready to fight someone," Chica said, shaking her head. "They did you dirty." Agnes managed a small laugh. "Tell me about it." Her parents, though supportive, weren't entirely happy about how she had conducted herself in the house. "You were strong, my daughter," her mother said, "but maybe you should have been a little calmer." Agnes sighed, leaning back in her chair. "I was just being myself, Mama." "I know," her mother said gently, "but the world does not always like women who are strong." The words stuck with Agnes long after dinner ended. That night, as she lay in bed scrolling through messages, she saw one from Andrew, her boyfriend, the person who had put her in this situation to begin with. "Andrew, can we talk?" Agnes stared at the message for a long time. Before the show, she and Andrew had been inseparable. He had encouraged her, filled out the application for her, believed in her more than anyone else. And yet, now that she was out, she realized something. She didn't want to talk to him. Because deep down, she knew that the moment she saw him, she would resent him for making her go through all this. For making her believe she was ready for something that had ultimately left her humiliated and exhausted. Instead of replying, she turned off her phone and shut her eyes. For the first time since leaving the house, she felt completely alone. For the past 3 years, Andrew had been Agnes' biggest supporter. He had always believed in her, even when she doubted herself. He was the one who pushed her to apply for Big Brother Lagos, filling out the form, encouraging her, and assuring her that she had what it took to make it. And now, she couldn't even bring herself to return his calls. Agnes sat in her small apartment, staring at her phone screen. 10 missed calls from Andrew, a dozen unread messages. She sighed. She knew she had to talk to him eventually. But how could she? How could she face the man who had thrown her into the spotlight, convinced her that this was her moment, only for her to be evicted after just 3 weeks, humiliated, dragged by the public, and now stuck picking up the pieces of her life? She felt exposed, judged, and ashamed. Finally, after 2 more days of avoiding him, she gave in. She sent him a simple text. "Agnes, come over. We need to talk." The tension boils over. Andrew arrived an hour later, looking both relieved and nervous. The moment he walked through the door, Agnes felt the tension thick in the air. He smiled hesitantly. "Hey, babe." She crossed her arms, leaning against the couch. "Hey." An awkward silence settled between them. Agnes had so much to say, so many pent-up emotions, but she didn't know where to begin. Andrew took a step closer. "I know you're upset, but Agnes, you were amazing in that house." "Andrew, stop," she interrupted, her voice tight. "I wasn't amazing. I got evicted in 3 weeks." He exhaled, rubbing his face. "That doesn't mean you failed. The public loved you." "Did they?" Agnes scoffed, grabbing her phone and scrolling through her comments. "Because half of them think I was too loud, too aggressive, too much." Andrew hesitated. "You knew this was a possibility. You knew the game wasn't just about talent. It's also about strategy and popularity. Then why did you push me into this?" she snapped, finally letting her emotions spill out. "Why did you make me believe this was my big break? That I was going to be some kind of star?" Andrew blinked, taken aback. "Agnes, I didn't force you. I believed in you." "But did I believe in myself?" she shot back, shaking her head. "Or did I just believe in your version of me?" Andrew opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. because deep down, he knew she was right. He had been the dreamer, the one who pushed her forward, convincing her she was meant for the spotlight. And maybe that wasn't what she wanted after all. Agnes sighed, running her fingers through her hair. Andrew, I appreciate everything you did for me, but I feel like I don't even know myself anymore. You're just adjusting, he said quickly. It's only been a few days. You need time to. I need space. The words came out before she even realized she was saying them. Andrew froze. Wait, what? Agnes swallowed hard. I need time. Away from you. Away from all of this. To figure out what I actually want. Andrew's face fell. Agnes, please, don't do this. I love you. She looked at him, eyes heavy with emotion. And I love you, too. But right now, I don't think I love who I've become. Andrew took a deep breath, trying to process her words. He wanted to argue, to convince her to stay. But deep down, he could feel her slipping away. Finally, he nodded slowly. If space is what you need, I'll give it to you. Agnes' heart clenched, but she knew this was a right decision. She had spent too long living according to other people's expectations, whether it was the audience, the housemates, or even Andrew. It was time to figure out who she truly was. Andrew left that night without another word. Agnes watched from the window as he walked down the street, his hands shoved in his pockets, his head bowed. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had lost a lot in the past few weeks. Her place in the game, her confidence, and now, possibly, her relationship. But in a strange way, she also felt something she hadn't in a long time. Freedom. Agnes had always believed that love could survive anything. She and Andrew had been together for 3 years, through highs and lows, through struggles and triumphs. He had been her rock, the one person who always pushed her forward when she doubted herself. But now, as she sat in her quiet apartment, staring at the empty side of the bed where he used to lay, she realized some things couldn't be fixed. It had been a week since she asked Andrew for space. A week of unanswered calls, unread messages, and an overwhelming sense of loss. At first, she thought she would miss him so much that she'd run back to him, tell him she'd been confused, that she still needed him. But something had changed in her. For the first time in years, she wasn't just Andrew's girlfriend. She wasn't the woman he had shaped and encouraged. She was simply Agnes, and she had no idea who that person really was. Tolu and Bella had been checking in on her, urging her to get out of the house, to do something besides staring at the ceiling. Girl, you need to stop sulking, Bella said over the phone. You should come out for drinks tonight. I don't feel like it, Agnes murmured, shifting under her blanket. Tolu sighed. Agnes, we know you're hurting, but you can't just shut yourself away. Agnes closed her eyes. I just need time. Fine, Bella said dramatically, but don't say we didn't try. She appreciated their concern, but there was only one person she really needed to talk to, Andrew, and she had been avoiding him. Until now. Later that evening, Agnes finally picked up her phone and typed a message. Agnes, can we meet? We need to talk. She didn't have to wait long. Andrew, yeah, come over. Her heart pounded as she grabbed her keys and headed out. When she arrived at his apartment, everything felt too familiar. The scent of his cologne lingered in the air. The furniture was arranged exactly as she remembered. And for a moment, she wanted to pretend that nothing had changed. Andrew stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. He turned when he heard her enter, his expression unreadable. Hey, he said softly. Hey, she replied, her voice smaller than she intended. They sat on the couch, an awkward silence stretching between them. Neither of them wanted to say the words, but they both knew what was coming. Finally, Andrew sighed. "Agnes, I don't think space is what we need anymore." Her heart clenched. "I know." He looked at her, his eyes full of emotions. Love, sadness, resignation. "I wanted this to work. I thought we could just move past it." "So did I," she admitted. But she swallowed hard. "I think we both know that we can't." Andrew's jaw tensed. "I don't regret pushing you to do Big Brother. I really thought it was what you wanted." "I thought so too," she whispered. "But maybe I wasn't ready. And now, I don't know if I can go back to how things were." He nodded slowly, processing her words. "So this is it, then?" Agnes felt tears welling in her eyes, but she forced herself to be strong. "Yeah, I think it is." A long silence stretched between them. Then, to her surprise, Andrew gave a small smile. "You're still going to be great, you know," he said. "You don't need a show to prove that." Agnes let out a shaky breath. "Thank you. For everything." They sat there for a few more minutes, neither of them moving, as if they could somehow hold on to what was left of them. But the moment had already passed, and there was no going back. Agnes left Andrew's apartment that night feeling hollow but also strangely lighter. For so long, she had let him be the anchor of her life, guiding her choices, shaping her future. But now she had to figure things out on her own. She walked down the quiet street, the city lights blurring as tears finally spilled down her cheeks. She had lost a love that had once meant everything to her, but she had also found something else. Herself. The weeks after her breakup with Andrew felt like a slow, painful blur. Agnes had tried to adjust to her old life, but everything felt different now. Or maybe she was the one who had changed. Everywhere she went, people recognized her. Some whispered behind her back, some laughed, and others boldly approached her, wanting to take pictures. At first, she thought she could handle it. She told herself that it would die down eventually, that people would move on to the next viral housemate. But it didn't stop. The whispers turned into judgmental stares. The online comments became crueler. Some of her old friends avoided her, either jealous of her brief fame or ashamed to be associated with someone who had been evicted so quickly. Gloria had made it to the final week. She was still in the house, still playing the game, and still being celebrated. People on social media were calling her the queen of the season, and fans had started mocking Agnes, saying she had been nothing more than a stepping stone for Gloria's rise to fame. Every time Agnes scrolled through her phone, she saw posts, memes, and harsh words that chipped away at what was left of her confidence. She couldn't take it anymore. She had to get out. One night, as she sat in her dimly lit apartment, staring at her phone with yet another batch of negative comments flooding her notifications, she made the decision. She picked up the phone and called Chica, her best friend. "I need to leave," she said the moment Chica answered. "Leave where?" Chica asked, confused. "Here, Lagos, Nigeria." There was silence on the other end. Then, Chica sighed. "Agnes, running away won't fix anything." "I'm not running," Agnes insisted, though deep down, she wasn't so sure. "I just need a fresh start. Somewhere I can breathe." There was only one place that came to mind. It wasn't completely unfamiliar. She had distant relatives there, and she had visited a few times before. It was far enough to escape the chaos, but close enough that she wouldn't feel completely lost. And most importantly, no one there would care about Big Brother Lagos. Once she had made up her mind, she didn't waste any time. She sold some of her furniture, packed a few suitcases, and booked a one-way ticket to Accra. As she stood in her apartment one last time, she looked around at the empty space. Memories of Andrew, of her old life, of who she used to be, flashing through her mind. This wasn't just a trip, it was a goodbye. The moment she landed in Accra, she felt like she could finally breathe again. The air was different, the pace of life was slower, and best of all, no one stared at her like she was a failure. She checked into a small hotel while she figured out her next steps. She had some savings left, enough to get by for a few months while she decided what to do next. For the first time in a long time, there was no pressure, no expectations, no cameras. Just her. Agnes spent the next few days wandering the streets of Accra, blending into the crowds, enjoying the anonymity. She strolled through Makola Market, watching vendors haggle and sell their goods, feeling a sense of normalcy she hadn't felt in weeks. She visited Labadee Beach, letting the ocean wash away the weight she had been carrying. For once, she didn't have to be Agnes from Big Brother Lagos. She was just Agnes, and for the first time since leaving the house, she felt at peace. Agnes had always imagined that, if she ever left Nigeria, it would be for something grand. Maybe a new job, a business opportunity, or an exciting adventure. Not like this. Not as someone trying to escape her own life. But after spending a few weeks in Ghana, she realized that leaving had been the best decision she could have made. For the first time in months, she woke up without anxiety, without dread. There were no whispers, no judgmental stays, no news headlines calling her a failure. Just the sound of waves crashing against the shore, the distant chatter of people living their normal lives, and the peace of knowing that no one here saw her as Agnes, the evicted housemate. She was just Agnes, and that was enough. At first, she had avoided her phone completely. She didn't want to see updates about Big Brother Lagos. She didn't want to see Gloria's victory celebrations or hear about how her old housemates were still thriving in the spotlight. But curiosity eventually won. One morning, she opened Instagram for the first time in weeks. The first thing she saw, Gloria posing with the Big Brother Lagos trophy. Agnes stayed at the image, expecting to feel jealousy, anger, regret. But all she felt was nothing. Gloria had won. Good for her. Agnes wasn't in the house anymore. That was okay. She had spent so much time running from her failure. But now, she realized that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't a failure at all. She had learned more about herself in those 3 weeks than she had in her entire life. She had learned that she was stronger than she thought. She had learned that she didn't need to please everyone. She had learned that not all battles were worth fighting. And most importantly, she had learned that sometimes losing was the best thing that could happen to you. Agnes knew she couldn't stay in Ghana forever, but she also knew she wasn't ready to return to Nigeria just yet. So, she made a decision. She found a small apartment near the coast, rented it for 6 months, and decided to start fresh. She didn't know what she would do yet. Maybe she'd start a business. Maybe she'd work in media. Maybe she'd travel. For the first time, she wasn't in a rush to figure it out. She just wanted to live. One afternoon, as she sat at a beach cafe, sipping fresh coconut water and enjoying the cool Ghanaian breeze, her phone vibrated. A message from Richard. Richard, hey stranger. I heard you left Nigeria. How's Ghana treating you? Agnes smiled, staring at the message for a long time. She thought about Richard, about the way he had looked at her that night before she left the house, about the way he had never judged her, even when the whole world did. Maybe one day, she'd go back. Maybe one day, she'd see him again. But today, she was just Agnes, sitting on a beach, finally at peace with herself. And for now, that was enough. And so, Agnes's journey comes full circle. A tale of love, fame, loss, and rediscovery. From the glittering chaos of Big Brother Lagos to the quiet shores of Accra, her story reminds us that healing doesn't always look like a grand victory, but sometimes like a quiet morning, a rented room, and the courage to start over. Agnes taught us that failure isn't the end, and even in shame, there's a spark of reinvention. We saw her hurt, grow, fall apart, and rebuild, not for applause, but for her own peace. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you reflect, please subscribe to the channel for more compelling narratives like this. Don't forget to like, comment, and most importantly, share this with your friends and community. Your support helps bring stories like Agnes's to life and gives a platform to voices that matter. Tell us in the comments, what part of Agnes's journey spoke to you the most? We'd love to hear your thoughts and reflections. Until the next story, keep believing, keep growing, and never be afraid to begin again.